I always tell people she sounds a little threatening, kind of like, mind your P's and Q's, baby.
Something about mind control or something, I'm not sure.
Right? Now, I
Okay.
can't see you, darling.
Okay, your recorder is turned. Okay, it should be. Wait a minute.
It's on, but
Oh,
there
oh,
seems
I
to be
see
something
what it's
over.
doing.
There you go.
Try that. It's just not letting me use my real one, which pisses me off because I really hate this one.
Me
Okay.
too. I prefer my iPhone video to this one because this one always makes me look completely washed out.
That's just it. And the bright lights behind me, you want me to turn them off?
If you want to, yeah, I keep mine off, so yeah.
Yeah.
So everybody, as we get set up, this is the amazing Pamela Steele, and she is a tarot creative and has agreed to join me for this Skype interview, and y'all will be watching it on InnerTubes. Well, if you want to be sitting on InnerTubes, you can watch it on InnerTubes, but you'll be watching it on YouTube. One of those days already.
It's all good.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to tell people just a little bit about you. And basically, what I know about Pamela is that she is creative. She's hella funny if you follow her on Facebook. Um, she is very spiritual, but not over the top with it.
metaphysical redneck.
I love that. I've
That's
done something
that.
called the redneck ritual.
So we speak the same language.
So yeah. Um,
How good.
so Pamela, tell me a little bit about who you are in terms of your work. I guess, what do you do?
Well, I'm kind of a jack of all trades. Right now, I earn a living by reading tarot, selling tarot decks, and doing massage therapy. Those three things. I do a little bit of teaching, a whole lot of talking, and it's just a lifelong procession that landed me here, which I think is a good place to be.
Yeah, it's a crazy world in the tarot world these days. Excuse me a minute. Have to lift Kisa down. She's my delicate 15-pound girl. I think I hurt my wrist. And I think that what I've liked about the tarot world recently is that there's been so much ability to connect with other people. The internet seems to have really brought that to us. I've been participating in tarot since the early 80s, but didn't really get involved in the community till the 90s, or probably 95. Did you find that similar?
Oh, extremely similar. I was technically a solitary practitioner from 78, 79 up until, well, really about 2010. And up until then, I had done like INETs shows, East, West, whatever, and a few odd things here and there, the odd psychic fair. Nothing really resonated. 2000, I got my first computer, woohoo! And by the time I got around to doing all the revisions I wanted to do on the Steel Wizard and getting it ready for the second edition, it was September 2010, and out of the blue, somebody said to me, well, aren't you on Facebook? And I went, uh-huh. And they said, well, how come you're not in any of the tarot groups on Facebook? Oh, there's tarot groups on Facebook? How cool is that? So I started talking to people and getting to know them, and I was a little naive I assumed all tarot people were kind of like you and me. What you see is what you get. I'm not saying most of them aren't, but I was really appalled when I found that there were people out there that were just essentially unscrupulous bastards, and stunned, just stunned. They're people, and I guess it's let rich people or people. I don't care where you go, watch your luggage. And that was about when I started getting a little more select in who and what I dealt with.
Yeah.
And then about, 5 years ago, Roxy, Sam, and I, we met online, right? One of the first people I met. And we were chatting on Skype one day and decided to start a group called the Tarot Deck Creators.
Yes.
Started out as a page, and once we got done doing a how-to DVD series with Linda Marson through Global Spiritual Studies on create your own tarot deck, it just kind of got out of hand. So we moved it to a group that is now a secret group. But we've got so many people in there that are successful tarot deck, oracle deck, Lenormand creators, writers, bloggers, you name it. And all of these people together, and we share ideas and information. It's a really great group. And I am very proud to say that we did that, you know.
And it's a wonderful group. I joined it because when y'all started, you said that, they wanted reviewers, and that was what I was doing at the time. And then, of course, I got involved in creating a Lenormand deck. But it's a wonderful group. I've met some amazing creators there. I was able to, I've interviewed Roxy, Jeffrey
Donato.
I was going to say Donato again, and I just talked to him 2 days ago.
He's great.
He's wonderful. And Monroe Singh, who's got his campaign is successful now. He got fully funded. So it's been wonderful. It's been a great experience for me to go in and see the open sharing and the real kindness that I see there from creator to creator. People really, everybody wants everybody else to succeed. There's no real, that I see, jealousy.
It's not allowed. I'm sorry, it's just not allowed. Over the years, twice we've had some issues. Nothing that couldn't be handled, usually privately. Usually you don't do this stuff in public. That's like streaking in the old days. You just don't do it. Well, not at my age. I mean, maybe when I was younger it would have been okay, but oh my God. But it's just one of these things that if I had done something that was a big oops, like, created some kind of massive social faux pas that I was not aware of, it was just something, I did something, whatever, talk to me. Please talk to me.
Right.
Don't just start blasting it out there that, oh my God, you know what an idiot that woman is? Yeah, we all make mistakes. It's called being human. And in the light of that, what we're more want to do is, there's Roxy and Bonnie Chauvet and me. That's who admins that group. And we will discuss it among ourselves. And usually they say, okay, Pam, you tell them. Okay. But I've been appointed diplomat of the admins, and I don't mind. I really don't mind. Almost always, there's only been one time that we had to literally move somebody out of the group, and that was years ago. But since then, or if people have an issue, come to one of us. We'll fix it. We'll figure it out. We're here to support each other. We're not here to rip each other a new one. That just isn't going to happen. And if you can't play nice, take your toys and go elsewhere. That's simple.
Yeah, it sounds like you were raised by the same people I was. Now, I have to tell you, I don't research people before I talk to them, which is probably bad interviewing skills. But I knew that you were from Canada, right? But you certainly don't sound like you're from Canada. You sound like you're more from my neck of the woods. I hear something southern, a little southern accent in there, I think.
Well, just a wee bit, maybe not so much as you could tell. I was born in Oklahoma, and my dad and my grandfather were both oil patch.
Ah.
I know why Halliburton's colors are red and gray, because the first team that Earl C. Halliburton ever took out to haul equipment, one was a bay and one was a gray.
Nice.
Yes. So born and raised in the oil patch. I understand big oil and gas. It's not completely evil. Nothing is. And we lived all over Texas, West Texas, until I was about 12.
Okay.
And we moved to Nevada. And we were back and forth between Nevada and Oklahoma for a while. And then after I graduated high school in Las Vegas, I moved to San Diego. Yay! Which was probably my favorite city in the whole world. And then in the mid-70s, early 70s, my mom was overseas. My mom and dad were overseas. She met and fell in love with a Canadian. And her and my dad weren't all that together anyway. And so they divorced after 20 years, and she moved to Canada. Well, I'm nosy, and my ex and I had just split up. The kids' dad, they were 1 and 3. And I decided it was time to go check out this guy that was my new stepdad. Once I got here, that was it. This is where I belonged.
Isn't that awesome?
It is.
Yeah.
It's where it's home, you know?
That's very cool. My mom actually worked for a gentleman who made his money in oil. So I grew up with Roughnecks, and you know, they called my mom at 2 in the morning to tell her a derrick went down, and I still remember to this day her going, "What do you want me to come do about it at 2 in the morning? Pick it up?" She gave those guys heck, and they you probably saw the bumper sticker that said, "Please don't tell my mom I work in an oil field. She thinks I play piano in a whorehouse."
I remember that like yesterday. I do.
So yeah.
But the thing of it is, what I proved over the years, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is it doesn't matter who you are or where you go. You have 2 choices. You can play the game and not live your truth, or you can live your truth. I mean, for 7 years, I worked pipeline because I wanted to be outside. It was fun, and the money was good.
Yeah.
And they used to tease me because it didn't take very long for me to go from, you know, one of the average grunts that was doing something so inanely stupid that I would daydream and lose track of what I was doing, and they said, "I'll get her off of there," to managing their on-site warehouses. And I had all my tickets and running my own crews and everything else. And it wasn't really popular back then because, I'm a girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. Go figure. They learned real quick. Don't even assume. But they used to tease me because the guys had come by the warehouse after everybody had cleared out because they had some of these really in-depth, life-altering decisions to make. And they wanted to talk to me. And that was fine. I didn't have a problem with that. And they used to refer to what I did as the art of Zen pipelining. Okay? Because it was all a part of being. And it was something that I needed to experience, just like tending bar for a lot of years because I needed money. But every job I've had, every place I've been, you look around and you learn the rules. I mean, it's their home ground, dude. You better learn the rules. So you learn the rules, and then you learn how to bend them and break them properly. And when all is said and done, the only person you really have to wake up with in the morning is you.
Yes.
No one else on the planet matters. So as you look at yourself in the mirror in the morning, if you say, okay, you know, there's a little room for improvement, so we're not going to do that again. But there's also that atta-girl part. It says, okay, you did pretty good, so let's bump it up a notch.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be, it's wonderful if you are, and I've lived in them, settings where you're surrounded by nothing but peace, harmony, nature. That was my preference, raising my kids. Let's be out of town. But you can't always be in that situation, not if you're going to be a member of society. Mm-hmm. So I found it important to, if all else fails, just maintain your truth. You're going to be okay.
My favorite quote in the world, and I don't know where it is, I have a little picture of it, is bloom where you're planted.
That's beautiful. That's exactly right.
You can't always pick the dirt you're going to set your feet down on, but you can absolutely choose your reactions.
So. Definitely. And you can change how you feel about it.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Let me get into our questions. I feel like I could just sit here and just chat with you forever, which is awesome. Who or what is your creative muse?
I'm a dreamer. And more often than not, what it starts at is a feeling. It's from anywhere. It could be music, it could be a piece of art, because I have a nasty tendency to remember just about everything I've ever seen. I don't have an eidetic memory by any stretch of the imagination. I don't even remember what I had for breakfast. But when it comes to something that really strikes me, I remember. Mm-hmm. And that feeling is I am going to do my level best to transfer onto an image.
Wow.
Because it can be, sometimes I've looked up and seen something in the clouds or in the sky that is so breathtaking. I remember turning around, I went down to feed the horses one morning, and I thought I saw something shining in the trees behind the house, antique willows, giant trees. And I walked over to see what was sparkling, thinking, oh gosh, did someone break something? And it wasn't anything, but we'd had a huge fog roll in the night before. And I looked around and there wasn't anything shiny, but when I turned around, there was 4 to 6 inches of hoarfrost on everything, every wire, every post, every leaf, everything. And as I turned and noticed the frost, which I was kind of head down before that, it was cold, the sun peeked over the horizon. Now, I live in the prairies where you can watch your dog run away for 4 days. And as the sun touched the world, it exploded in diamond rainbows. It just exploded. The frost itself was, it's beyond description. It's like holding your first child. You just can't describe that feeling.
Wow.
And it's things like that. It's things like holding your child. That if I get stuck, if I hit what they call artist block, I'll go back to that every time. I will remember holding my sons. I will remember that moment when the world lit up in rainbows and diamonds. I will remember so many moments in my life that really impacted. And that's when you're speaking directly to the source.
Wow.
There is no interpreter needed. You're there. And in that moment, you take that moment and you start expanding it outward. And that's where it comes from. That's pretty well the Reader's Digest version.
That's beautiful. I mean, but I really get that. It's kind of what I tell people in the whole joy seeking. I said, find things to hold on to. They don't have to be big things. You know, for me, a cardinal at my feet brings me so much joy. So, little things and they build up. Well, now let's talk about, Pamela is the creatrix of the Steel Wizard, Tarot, and also let's talk about your most recent project.
My babies, the Wizard's Pets.
Yes.
They started as a series of cartoon drawings back in the mid-'80s, like about 1984. I started drawing those, and it actually happened because my neighbors had a baby. And babies, to me, are just smelly little parasites as a rule. I'm not a baby person. I'm sorry, I should be, but I'm not. And we lived out in the middle of literally nowhere, and it was very hard to get around, and there was basically no shopping. And they kind of rented one of the mobile homes for me, so I thought, well, I really should get them a baby gift. So what I ended up doing, because up until then I'd worked strictly in oils. Everything I did was down-to-earth serious. And one of my friends at the time, Donna Richards, kept saying, you need to lighten up. Fine. And a great big piece of roofing slate. Cleaned it all up. And I painted a baby dragon with a pacifier in its mouth and great big eyes, because this baby had big eyes. And on the top was the little girl's name, and underneath was the birth date and the pertinent information. And that's what I gave him as a baby gift. It went over so big. Can you draw one golfing? Can you do one playing football? Can you do this? I can do anything. It's just, why? But I ended up with a series of almost 30 drawings. And what I would do is black and white line and photocopy 10 to 15, hand color them, mat them, send them off to shows. And I put a $15 minimum bid on them, and they were selling for between $75 and $150. And then my ex and I split up. And another one. This was, I forget. I lose track. They're just numbers now. Anyway, we split up, and he sued me for 50% of my copyrights. So I sat on them for 10 years.
Yeah.
And in 2010, when I got finished getting everything done and started joining the tarot community, I went back and Mom started a storyline once on the first, like a children's book. I took that, wrote that, and then wrote 2 more to follow. And then again, just kind of let it ride until 2.5 years ago, my granddaughter, who was 9 at the time, came up to me, and she looks at me with these great big blue eyes, and she says, "Grandma," I said, "Yes." She says, "Can I have a tarot deck?" Well, oh my gosh, her other grandmother's Mormon, and they're scary, and we're not Mormon. Yes, I was raised Southern Baptist, but that was 50 years ago. So it just kind of I began to explain to her why it would be a bad idea if she had a copy of the Steel Wizard. And meanwhile, I'm mentally cataloging all the decks I had seen that are so child appropriate, and the ones that you can't use were going there, and the ones that are a maybe are here. And I got about 4 in a row, and she looks up at me and she says, "Will you make me one?" And before I could even disengage that part of my brain, I heard myself say, "Of course I will, sweetheart." Then the "what did you do" came over me, and she wasn't living close at the time, so they were going home a couple of days later. And after she went back to her house, I had no idea what I was doing. I went through this theme and that theme and this theme, and I was walking into my office, and I had a little table outside with some business cards on it, and one of those business cards I'd made up for these little children's books, because they're available online, but I'm going to redo all that. And I looked down, and the character I was using, I thought, oh my gosh, that's the Knight of Swords. I sat down at lunch that day and had that done, and it just fell out. It was done. I knew, because I developed all the characters I needed in the books, and everything else just literally fell into place. And even the cat and the gremlin play really prominently, because the aces is a gremlin's hand. Everybody thinks it's a dragon. It's a gremlin's hand holding the symbol, and then 2 through 10, somewhere in that picture, you'll see a pair of gremlin's eyes, maybe his hand. And then in all the court cards, or all the court cards don't have them, all the majors have got the gremlin hidden in there somewhere. He's the watcher.
Nice.
And it took 2 years, and then we had a massive failure with the campaign. I'm not sure what happened there, because they sell really well. Really well.
You did a campaign, like a Kickstarter and Indiegogo?
Yeah. And I don't know what happened. It was just like everybody, after the fact, everybody went, "You did?"
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because I'm mouthy about Kickstarter and Indiegogo. You know that. I mean, I'm like, blah, 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 go get this deck. I don't remember seeing it.
I know. It was just like it was invisible. But I already had quite a bit of money saved from the sale of the Steel Wizard. So I took that and what we got on Indiegogo, which wasn't much, it was very little, and put together enough and contacted my printer in Florida. And we went ahead and did a run of 1,000. When I told him what I was going to do, the guy that owns the company actually called me up and he said, "Wow." I said, "Can you do it?" He said, "Well, of course we can do it." He said, "I just want to go over the details with you. And oh, by the way, I sent you some quotes, but you can't have the kind of paper that's listed first. We're printing on this particular stock, and it's a Madden stock. It's wow."
And you have decks left to sell, right?
Yeah. Right now they're being distributed that run the Northwest Tarot Symposium, whose guest artist this year is going to be none other than the Eric C. Dunn.
I know.
You
I'm
know,
going to be there.
Eric was one of our first recruits in the Tarot Deck Creators Group. No kidding.
I didn't know. I love his work. I saw him. I actually ran across a picture of his on DeviantArt, I think, and just went, I was stunned. It was the Queen of Pentacles. I will never forget the card. But, yeah, well, good, because I don't have my copy, so I need to get a copy. So,
Yes, just contact Devera, or they have the Guiding Tree. I don't know if that website's up and running yet, but June Jadzia, that's who's doing all my distributing for me.
super.
I've got a few copies here. I'm about sold out. I only brought in 2 cartons, which was dumb, but hey. But yeah, when we were at Bats, that was their #1 seller.
Good. Well, it's a wonderful deck. I've seen images of it, and if anybody has seen the Steel Wizard, it's different.
Totally.
It's a different energy. It's a fun, silly almost in parts. There's a silly, quirky humor to it that the images I've seen really speak to me, and I would love to have that deck when I go out to like birthday parties and stuff where we need good up energy. Like I won't take the Deviant Moon. Sorry, Patrick, but I won't take that to like a engagement party.
No, and I understand. Like clothing parties, there's all kinds of situations where, I live in a really hardcore redneck community that are very, very Christian, and I'm good with that. I'm fine with that. Yeah, we had our differences years and years ago, but you don't play into the drama. The only thing that finally happened was I finally got tired of people interrupting me at work and made it a point to sit down one afternoon and phoned every church in town and spoke to whoever was running it and asked them, please call up your congregation or I will be suing you for slander. And miraculously it quit right then and there. I do not buy baby goats to sacrifice them under a full moon. I needed a ditch goat. God.
And who does that under a full moon these days? That's so last year.
That's stupid.
So, what do you have like a certain ritual before you begin your work, or before you start something? Is there anything you do in particular? And somebody called me on the word ritual. I don't mean it in a magical sense per se. I just mean it like, do you have certain steps that you do before you start a project?
Not really, no. It's like with reading, drawing, all of it. It's all the same energy. Healing, it's all the same source. And when I was a kid, yeah, I had to be in the mood to do this. But as I got older, by the time I was in my early 20s, I realized it wasn't a switch you could turn off and on. It was a dimmer switch. You just tile it up and down. So it's always on.
Yeah.
It's like the lights over my head that are so annoying. It's always on. It's just not always bright. You can brighten it just by taking a few deep breaths and preparing your space. That's really all I've ever done. Mm-hmm. Like if I'm going to read, I get my reading cloth out and my cards and I set everything up and I'm ready to go.
Yeah, that's like
in 2 minutes.
Yeah, for me, for cooking, the only thing that has to be done before I start cooking is the kitchen has to be clean.
Exactly. You need a neat workspace.
Yeah, it has to be cleaned. I need to start clean so I can get it dirty.
Mm-hmm.
But, well, now, what's on your working table right now? Is there anything we need to know about? Anything we need to look forward to?
If I live long enough, yes. I'm working on, I thought at first it was another tarot, just because that's what I've been doing. And it's called The Eternal Seeker. And the reason I started it was because I'm at a place where it's not that I've outgrown the tarot decks. I haven't. Because they're always going to teach me something. But I did the Steel Wizard for me. That's why the extra cards, the extra majors, the maidens in there. The maidens represent the potential of the suit. And the other cards were the ones that I always thought needed to be there from the first time I picked up a deck. I thought, where's the rest of them? My cousin freaked out, but, oh, they're all there. No, there's not all there. Where's the one for this, this, and that? Anyway. But I'd come to a point where what I was feeling, it was almost like I needed a lot more somehow. So I started out drawing pictures for what I was at that time calling the major arcana for this eternal seeker. And then I realized about a month and a half, 2 months ago, it's not a tarot, it's an oracle. It's got 33 cards. And everything, it's inspired by the major arcana. It's very much inspired by the majors. But when it came to the Tower card, somewhere I saw a rendition of what would have been the Pillars of Hercules, an artist idea concept of the Pillars of Hercules. And it was a Grecian statue, and you were kind of down looking up at it. And he had a drape over one arm, and then his other hand was up like this. And that's what I remember of the picture. Okay, so I sat down one day and I sketched out this massive statue, only lightning is hitting his hands. His eyes are glowing from within. And where the lightning hits his chest, it's opened in the shape of the rune Kano for opening. And light is bursting forth from there. And he's surrounded in storm clouds and waves are coming up on it's just,
wow.
But it's not called a tower, it's called something else. And I'm doing that through the whole thing, like as I approach an archetype, like the one for justice. It just, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm different now, okay? But I started researching it because I knew there was something that I was missing in this whole concept of, because to me, don't judge anybody because you haven't walked in their shoes. You don't know where they're at. You don't know why. Just smile if you can't do anything else, or, just sometimes just a nod that says, okay, I see, here's your space and I'm over here, but I see you. Yeah. And I've come up with some really obscure Celtic deity called Forseti, who has golden pillars on either side and a silver ceiling. And all of a sudden this image just starts forming of this warrior, and it turns out he does have an axe, who sits in arbitration as much as judgment. He's not there. He's there to enforce the law, and no one is above the law. The law is for all. I mean, we're talking karmic law, the law of give and take.
Yeah.
The law, the big one. And that's what I saw as representing justice. So that's the one that's going to be next.
Nice. Now, how close are you? Where are you in this process?
I think I got 11 of them done.
Wow.
I've got a Pinterest board for them. And that's about how I'm keeping track of it, because I can't remember how many. Oh, yeah, on that one. And like for the star card, Caitlin, I think you pronounce it Seikos? Not sure. She did the Hawaiian tarot. Hazel Moon Hawaiian deck.
Yes, I have that one.
That sweetheart, she sent a card with that. And it was her, it was her face, and a Hawaiian girl sitting with her hands cupped, and they were holding a bright light, and there was this glorious sunset behind her, and it was kind of peeking through the rest of the form. I asked, do you mind if I use that? And she said, no, go right ahead. So Catalin became my star card.
Nice.
Her hands are life givers. It's water that's flowing over and into her lap. There's a pool that flows over her and then down and on. And it's this huge, the background's dark, the stars are there. It's called inspiration.
Nice.
Yeah.
her deck is really, her death card is one of the most poignant for me because it just shows water and a floating, it's just like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's really stark and it really hit
One
me.
talented lady.
Yeah, that deck, more people need to know about it.
Oh, they do, definitely. They do. I mean, from the time I sold my house to print the first Steel Wizard. How did you come up with that money? Sold my house and thought, well, let's see what happens now. And I'd been dating a guy who, once I sold my house and he realized I really wasn't going to buy anything else, I was going to invest in a what? He bought a house and told me, he says, well, just winter up here, and if you don't like it, then next spring I'll help you move. It must not be spring because I'm still there. And that was 11 years ago, like, here I am. It just a sweetheart. I mean, that man is a sweetheart, which is why I'm keeping him. But when I sold the house, I mean, this is all the money I've got in the whole world, right? And you're going to do what? I'm going to print my own tarot. What are you going to do? Well, I had spent quite a few years, I belonged to Eclectic, I belonged to the ATA, just whatever was out there that I could find easily. And bless her, Kate Zelandia with Eclectic wrote to me and said, do you mind if I do a pre-release review on what you've got so far? And I said, no, that'd be great. Adam McLean also commented on it at one point, just out there. And so these are two of the people that I said, do you mind if I quote you on the back of the box? I had no idea who they were, just that I really liked what they said about it. And of course, my cousin Maya Heath, who, the Book of Stones and Metals and owns Dragon Scale Jewelry and all that, and the one that got me into tarot, woman. But I didn't realize when I first started, and this is really how this Tarot Deck Creators group got going. I didn't realize when I started really how big a project it is to print your own deck. I mean, I'm one to reverse engineer everything. So, okay, here's the finished product. How do I get from here to there? So here's the finished project. Well, I'm going to need this and this and this. And every once in a while, it would seem overwhelming, like when you're dealing with ISBNs and copyrights and all the legalities of it.
Yeah.
And more often than not, I just go sit on the front porch and cry. And Brian would come out and say, there, honey, baby steps, one step at a time. You can do this. And I did.
Yeah.
I mean, I got slammed from every card printer in North America who said, well, take 10 of them out. We'll talk about it. Oh, they're too big. You're going to have to make them smaller. Oh, that deck's never going to sell. And finally, it was called Cards Are Us at the time. It's now Quality Playing Cards, but Cards Are Us. Found it on the internet at an 800 number, and I called them up and said, hi, my name's Pamela Steele, and I wanted to know if your company would be interested in printing a tarot deck. And the guy that answered the phone introduced us, says, hi, I'm Charles. What can I do for you? And he said, sure, what's a tarot deck?
I like his attitude.
Well, by the time we got it finished and had so much trouble getting the book put together because my computer died, he read that book and had a working knowledge of tarot and had all these suggestions. So the Steel Wizard, I mean, that's why it's laminated. That's why the borders are a little wider. That's why it's because that was the first time I didn't know what I was doing. He didn't know what he was doing. But since then, I mean, he's done Tarot of the Holy Light. You go to their company site, and they have a tarot division now.
Wonderful. I've got Tarot of the Holy Light, and one of my prizes is sitting right over there. Somebody was in a financial strait and had to sell a few of their decks off, and one of the decks they sold was a signed copy of your deck.
Wow.
And it now lives with me.
So there you go.
And I hate it. It's one of those things you hate buying it because, it's like giving up one of my kids. I've got too many decks. I am actually going to have to, I'll deal with that later. I'll be like, Scarlett, I'll think about that later. I have over 400 right now, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, but so I have a copy of it, and it's one that I don't actually read with because I like to look at it, and then I'm like, I don't want to hurt you. Go back in the box, and I need to stop that because
Well, if you've got the original edition, they're really hard to shuffle. I mean, I'm used to big cards, big hands, okay?
me too.
And I've got a shuffling technique where I never rifle them. Never. I will cut turn because I do read with reversals and then hold them and let my thumbs just kind of relax and they just kind of together. And that's how I learned to never damage the cards. That's why I still got my very first ever Rider or Waite tarot that I started with in, way back when. And it's still in really good condition because nobody touches it except me. Um, I mean, I've let people handle them before and it pissed me off. Like, what did you just do? Put that down. Don't you ever do that again. How dare you? So
Yeah.
but when I had the second edition printed, they're on a linen cardstock and they're half an inch smaller each way because by then everybody's comfortable working with borders and the closeness and the art. So the second edition is way easier to handle. They're really slippery, like the wizard's pets, really slippery. So if you pick them up between your finger and your thumb and you start to walk away with them, they'll shoot out and you get to play 78 card pickup.
Bus driver, that's what we used to call it.
Yep.
Pick up the kids.
But you know what's fun is when you do that and you look down, well, you automatically start reading them as you're picking them up.
True story.
You do. If it falls, you think, oh, that's what, and that's, I think, one of my favorite parts of reading tarot. You'll go through a whole reading and you're stopping periodically and, making sure that your person's still with you and everything's clear and all that. So you get to the end of a reading, you got a couple of minutes and you say, okay, do you have any questions? And they almost feel obligated to ask you something, but they can't really think of anything. So they'll point at a card and say, well, what does that card mean? Well, in a traditional sense, this is the general guidelines for the meaning of the card. But in this case, because this and this is on the other side of it, and this is crowning it, so we're going to have to go with, and try to explain to them that it's not a pat meaning, that you're telling a story, and that the words can be adjectives, nouns, verbs, anything. If you say the word colorful, how are you using it in a sentence? It's the same with a card. How are you using it in the story?
Yeah. And I tell that to people. I'll do 3-card readings, and the way I do it is main situation, help, hinder. Real small, real direct. And, and on the hinder side, I'll get the star card. They'll be like, how's that a hinder card? I said, well, normally, this is one of those yay cards, but in the hinder spot, in this situation, it means you're not setting your goals high enough. You have to tell people, it's just exactly that. Tell the story you see. Don't read the book and try to force things. Well,
you can't make it fit.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you, for your last piece of advice, what is a piece of advice you would offer someone who wanted to be a creative as well, in any field, writing, art, anything, but what would you tell them to lead a creative life?
Follow your heart. Just follow your heart. I mean, never give up on your dreams, okay? The truth is, when I was in the 9th grade, I was not allowed in art class, period, because the school I was going to was new, and it only went 9th through 11, okay? Because they didn't want to take any of the seniors out of the surrounding schools. And, of course, they all gobbled up the art class because it's an easy class, right? And so I took my sketchbook, and I talked to my counselor, and Bob told me, he says, well, just go talk to the art director and see. And I went in there begging this woman to please let me in her class. She flipped through the book like, you're looking at flashcards kind of thing. Tossed it back to me and said, don't waste my time or yours, you have no talent. Okay, so I go back to the office, and I was just devastated. And Bob said, well, here's what we're going to have to do. I don't remember his last name. He was Bob, my counselor. He said, we're going to have to put you somewhere. And the only thing they had open, the only thing left was drama. And I went, no. He said, I got to put you somewhere. You have to have this credit. I carried a 4.0 all the way through school. He puts me in there, and for the first 6 weeks, I sat in the back of the theater drawing pictures and doing other things, reading, whatever, and I wouldn't do it. I didn't want to be there. I'm not going to do it because I wouldn't make eye contact. I wouldn't talk to people. I was, believe it or not, horribly, painfully shy. Yes, me. So the first 6 weeks go by, and we all, my girlfriends, my friends, we gathered after school and sometimes when we were supposed to be in school and would take off on our horses. But that day we were hanging around where we kept them because we were setting them up an obstacle course because we were teenagers and we wanted to see if we could do this standing up on backs of horses to do this. And one of my friends looked up and she said, "What is that?" And bouncing across the desert towards us was this dot, round dot, and this figure, stick figure bouncing on top of it. Got closer and I said, "Oh my Lord." Turns out it was my drama coach. Her name was Joan Snyder. And she bounced up on the fattest Arabian horse I've ever seen in my life. It shouldn't have been able to walk. It was so fat. And really happy to be there because, oh my gosh, I get out of my corral, you know. And she says, "Introduce me." So I introduced her, and we're all kind of looking at her. And she says, "And I have a deal for you. I will buy this horse. I will ride with you girls every weekend if you will get on stage for me." And by then I was just, okay, we have a deal. Well, she bought the horse. Didn't hold her to it for very long because that poor woman could hardly move. We lived on horseback. She was a dude, like really, yeah, not good. But I kept my end of the bargain. And the next Monday, I got into class, and she walks up and she hands me a monologue. And she says, "I want you to do this for me for competition." And it was a monologue from Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Oh, wow.
And I read it through. She said, "You got this?" I said, "Yeah, I got this." Oh my gosh. I was her leading lady all the way through her going back to university and getting her master's. She changed my life.
Wow.
So here I thought it would be best if I went to art school. The best thing that ever happened to me was getting thrown out of art school. I never gave up on it. Never gave up on being an artist because it's how I chose to express myself. I didn't want to be an actress. But she taught me to have that kind of confidence and that kind of empathy. She said, "You're a natural. You can do this." And she did. She never let me quit. And God bless that woman anyway. I don't know whatever happened to her.
What an amazing, amazing story. Yeah. And I love that. You know, don't quit, don't worry about detours. They may be different routes to your dream.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Well,
Well,
thank
see,
you.
one more thing.
Yes,
It was
please.
back in the mid-'80s. I met one of the founding fathers of science fiction fantasy art, Frank Kelly Freas. I was there hanging my work at a show, and he comes up behind me and said, "Did you do that?" And of course, I wanted to say why. I went to his suite with him and his wife and taught him my technique for clouds that day. And he said to me, "Where did you study?" And I said, "At my kitchen table." And he said, "That's good. Because if you had gone to art, you would know what you did was impossible."
Beautiful. Beautiful. Pamela, thank you so much for giving me your
Thank you,
time.
Arwen. This is wonderful. I had so much fun.
I really enjoyed it, and I hope that I'll see you at Newt's.
You will? You will? I'm doing a workshop with the Wizard's Pets on storytelling.
Yay! And I'm doing
It
one
involves
on characters. I'm doing one on
Oh,
creating characters with tarot, so those will go right hand in hand.
fabulous. Yes, because mine uses poker chips.
I'll have to come to that.
Oh, fun.
Well, thank you very much. And everybody, this has been Pamela Steele of the Wizard's Pet Tarot, Steel Tarot, coming The Seeker's Journey.
No, the Eternal Seeker.
The Eternal Seeker.
There we go.
I knew I was like, that's not quite right.
And
And
Seeker's in there.
and who knows what else after that, because I think this is a woman with lots more to give us. But thank you. And
Thank
as
you.
always, everybody, seek joy. And do you have a sign-off that you use?
Not really. I don't. It's just that we'll have to talk again.
I like it. Bye.